encourage you to just draw your conversation to a close, and I would love to hear from you anything that has emerged from your conversation that you think is worthy of the rest of this lovely group hearing. So, we'll start with the first question about the language of darkness and hiddenness and secrets. What does that say to you about God? And we've got a roving mic at the ready to hear from you. So anybody want to share anything from their group in response to that question? Wonderful, thank you. Mark?
Yes, I don't know. It's not me.
You know, I have wonderful memories of, you know, if I was coming home late at night and I would park my car in the farmyard and I would sometimes just stand there and, you know, look at the stars. And it was only when I moved away from living at home and moved to the city and, you know, wouldn't go home quite so often. And then when I'd go home, I would realise what I was missing in the city where there's so much light all the time and I could never see the stars. And I would stand in the farm again and think, oh yes, I can't see this when I'm in the city because there's just so much unnatural light, and it's you know, yes, it's dispelling the darkness, but we're losing some of the wonder of that too, which is great. So thank you for that memory. What about the second question? Who are the surprising people that God is using today? Thank you.
In Leyland, we have the Leyland Hotel.
Yes.
We have 107 asylum seekers.
Right.
And quite a number of them come here now. They come because there's an open invitation to them on a Tuesday, but quite a number of them come to church as well. And these are surprising people who are God's using to uncover treasure, I think, in us. Because for starters, some of them have, well, mostly they've come because they've been persecuted for their faith in Iran and in Eritrea. And that's a challenge to us. One lady is a pastor's wife in Eritrea who's lost in transit, her husband and her children somewhere. And she comes here on a Sunday morning and she just revels in the just being here. Yeah. And that's a challenge. What would we do? But secondly, another lady who is exploring her faith and has been gathered into another church, which is not really a Christian church, and trying to think of how to show her the truth is challenging. It's challenging to us. Do we really know what we believe? And so I would say that they are surprising people using us today to uncover treasures in our church.
Right, thank you for that. That's great. Thank you. Anybody else here and then immediately behind you?
Just on a personal note, the person who brought me to Christ was somebody who I didn't like and who was actually warned against getting involved with. He brought me to Christ.
Wow, yeah, that's a brilliant testimony. Thank you.
Well, we discussed the surprising people in life that we do come across now and again, especially on media as well. You've got people like Marcus Rashford.
Yes.
I don't know what his Christian background is, if any at all. You know, who've probably prompted people to go out and feed the world.
Absolutely, yeah.
Politicians. They have their own Christian fellowship.
Yeah,
a lot of them
they do.
are born-again Christians.
Yeah.
But we also come across teachers, youth workers, people of that nature as well, that inspire others and bring out the gifts.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah. Great. Over on this side.
I'll throw a spanner in the works. The guy who popped into my head, and I can't remember his surname, I'm very sorry, but you all know him, Hamza.
Yeah.
I've never seen on Prime TV such a valuable guy for humility and joy. And if any of you haven't watched the Bird programme he did from Scotland, it was an example of a Scottish village community taking to heart this enormous guy with hair that's nearly down to the floor, who is Muslim. They found he'd been living in his car for 3 weeks when he first moved there because he had no funds and nowhere to live. And the community took him to heart, and they all feel like they're related now. But if you haven't seen it, it's brilliant. But as joy and humility, never unlikely people,
Yeah, absolutely.
but God's gifts.
Yes,
Yeah.
indeed. Thank you so much.
I didn't mention this in the group because I didn't think about it till just now, but I was just thinking about young people. And I can't, what's her name? Thunberg?
Greta Thunberg.
That's it, Greta Thunberg. And I think some of us might have seen her at the beginning and thought, well, she's very young, how can she sort of know so much, and what can we learn from her? And wow,
Yeah.
she just brought so much, and there's so many others, isn't there, that we've
Absolutely.
heard of over the years, and
Yeah.
we should never sort of question if a young person can give us something because they can. And actually sometimes their passion for how our world is and what's happening to our world with climate change, they can give us far more than we can sometimes teach them. So yeah,
Thank you.
just a sudden thought.
Yeah, and yeah, there and then here, and then we'll move on to the third question. We'll never get to everything else.
Sorry, just to say on top of that, one of the things that some friends and I have done is to make a manifesto for growing old. And so as I get older, one of our manifesto is to know young people, to make sure that we continue to listen to those voices.
Brilliant. On here on the front row, thank you.
Doing well, Jill.
Yeah, just sadly, I think there was a time when it was the people in the church who protested and were thrown in the side for the politicians, and so often now, God is working through people who do those things,
Yeah,
but not people in church.
yeah, thank you. Okay. All right, and then the third question. What treasures might we have ignored in others or stolen from others? Any thoughts around that? Any confessions to make? Here again.
At the risk of talking a lot.
No, that's great.
We talked about people who often overlooked in church because they have gifts and skills, but they don't fit into our model of church. And actually, when somebody new comes to a church, it should change all of us. And so if what they have to offer doesn't fit, then it's the church that should change. We shouldn't try and just pigeonhole people into things. And sadly, again, so often I think we're looking for people who can serve us. We value people who can move chairs.
Yes.
More than we can value somebody who can pray day and night. There's something really wrong with that model of church, isn't there?
And there's that bit in Isaiah 45 verse 4 that says, I summon you by name and bestow on you a title of honour.
Yeah.
And that's not about doing, but identity given.
Absolutely.
So building on that.
Yeah, and it goes on to say that he does that though you do not acknowledge me.
Yeah.
So that's not about believers. That's about every person that God has created is honoured, cherished, a treasure to God. Phil, thank you.
Yeah, the obviously stolen from others makes me think globally around fair trade, trade justice, all of those issues around, a lot of our material success, if we're not careful and if we're honest, is on the back of slavery and inappropriate working conditions and all of that. So, that troubles me. But a question like that does genuinely make me sad about the number of people over the years who've left the Methodist Church because there wasn't a place for them to, they've offered their gifts.
Yeah.
And those gifts would change the place, and the place has said no thank you. And many of them go on to other churches that may be stronger, and and that's good. But I'm worried for those who tried once or twice and the treasures are locked away now. And thank you for asking that provocative question.
Yeah, I meet a lot of people who tell me they used to be Methodists.
Yeah.
Okay, one last comment on this and then we'll move on a bit. Thank you.
We took it the other way.
Maybe.
We took
Yeah.
false prophets
Okay.
who stolen the treasures from the Bible and translated them for their own means.
Right. Back to what I was saying about taking things out of context or using them in the wrong way.
Exactly.
Okay.